Hi, this is the fourth continuation video for example sums on the topic of past adjustments. Let's go to the example. Example 7. A, B and C are partners in a firm. Net profit of the firm for the year ended 31st March 2019 is rupees 30,000, which has been duly distributed among the partners in the agreed ratio of 3:1:1. It is noticed on 10th April 2019 that the undermentioned transactions were not passed through the books of accounts of the firm for the year ended 31st March 2019. A. Interest on capital at 6% per annum. The capital of A, B and C being rupees 50,000, rupees 40,000 and rupees 30,000 respectively. Interest on drawings: A rupees 350, B 250 and C rupees 150. Partner salaries: A rupees 5,000 and B rupees 7,500. Commission due to A for some special transaction, rupees 3,000. You are required to pass a journal entry which will not affect the profit and loss account of the firm and rectify the position of the partners inter se. So we can understand from the problem that the errors that have been made are that interest on capital at 6% per annum has not been provided. Interest on drawings has not been charged. Partner's salary for A and B has not been allowed. And partner's commission to A, rupees 3,000, has also not been allowed. So our approach to the problem should be to allow the interest on capital, charge interest on drawings, and allow the partner's salary and the partner's commission. For interest on capital at 6% per annum, the opening capitals of A, B and C are given, so we can apply the 6% rate directly on those amounts. So the working note will be table showing adjustments to be made. Working note: table showing the adjustments to be made. Particulars: A, B and C, and finally the firm divided into debit and credit. We'll begin by allowing the IOC at 6% per annum. For allowing IOC, we need to credit the partner and debit the firm. 6% on capital of A, 50,000, is equal to rupees 3,000. 6% on the capital of B, 40,000, is rupees 2,400. And 6% on the capital of C, rupees 30,000, is 1,800. On adding this up, we get 7,200, which I will put in the debit column of the firm. Next is to charge IOD. To charge IOD, we need to debit the partner and credit the firm. I'll debit A with his IOD, which is 350 rupees. B's IOD 250 and C's IOD 150 rupees. The total is 750 rupees, which I will put to the credit of the firm. Next item, partner salary. For partner salary, we need to credit the partner and debit the firm. Rupees 5,000 for A and rupees 7,500 for B. No salary for C. Total 12,500 in the debit of the firm. Partner's commission. A is to be allowed a commission of 3,000. Credit of A 3,000. No commission for B and no commission for C. Total 3,000 in the debit column of the firm. Now we need to find the difference. Let's total it up. The total of the credit side is 22,700. On deducting 750 rupees, we get 21,950 rupees. This amount of 21,950 rupees has to be divided in the profit sharing ratio of 3:1:1. And since it's coming on the credit of the firm, we need to debit the partners. So on dividing by 5, we get 4390, and for A it's 4390 into 3, which is 13,170 rupees. 13,170. And for each of B and C, it's 4,390 rupees. So since we've debited the partner and credited the firm, I'll write here reversing profits. And the ratio on which it was reversed is 3:1:1. Our next step is to find out the total. A debit total 13,520. A credit total 11,000. B debit total 4,640. B credit total 9,900. C debit total 4,540 rupees. C credit total 1,800 rupees. And firm credit total 22,700. Let's find out the net effect. $2,520 debit for A. For B, it is ₹5,260 credit, and for C it is ₹2,740 debit. It's the fluctuating capital method. We'll have to pass the adjustment entry to the partner's capital accounts. So solution, journal, date, particulars, LF number, debit rupees and credit rupees. A is capital account debit, ₹2,520. C is capital account debit, ₹2,740. 2. B is capital account, ₹5,260. And the narration being adjustment entry passed for rectification of errors. So this is the answer to this example. It was a very easy concept in this example. The mistakes made were IOC omitted, IOD not charged, partner salary and commission not allowed. So we allowed the IOC, we charged the IOD and allowed partner salary and commission and solved the problem. Next example, example 8. Rhea, Mona and Nisha shared profits in the ratio of 3:2:1. The profits for the last 3 years were rupees 1,40,000, rupees 84,000 and rupees 1,06,000 respectively. These profits were by mistake shared equally. It is now decided to correct the error. Give the necessary rectification journal entry. Now this is an error in the profit sharing ratio. The correct ratio is 3:2:1, whereas the profits were shared in the wrong ratio of 1:1:1. Now whenever profits are shared in the wrong ratio, in any sum that we do, the first step what we need to do is to reverse the profits which has been shared in the wrong ratio. And we know that for reversing the profits we need to debit the partner and credit the firm. So we'll first begin by reversing the profits in the ratio of 1:1:1. One more thing, 3 years profits are given separately. First year is 1,40,000, 84,000 and final year 1,06,000. It is not essential to reverse the profits separately, each of these amounts. We can add up the amounts and reverse it in one go. So let's begin with the working note. Table showing adjustment to be made. Particulars. Rhea divided into debit and credit. Mona again divided into debit and credit. And finally Nisha, debit, credit. And the last column for the firm, debit, credit. So we'll reverse the profits. And we'll reverse the profits in the wrong ratio, which is 1:1:1. We'll add up everything together and reverse it. So 1,40,000 plus 84,000 plus 1,06,000. We get 3,30,000 total profits, and on dividing by 3 we get 1,10,000 per partner. Since we are reversing the profits, we'll debit the partner and credit the firm. So 1,10,000, 1,10,000 debit of Mona, and again 1,10,000 debit of Nisha. Total 3,30,000 to the credit of the firm. Now we'll balance the firm. 3,30,000 on the debit of the firm, and this needs to be distributed in the correct ratio of 3:2:1. So we need to divide this by 6. $55,000. So on multiplying by 3, we get 1,65,000 for Rhea. Since the 3,30,000 balancing figure has come in the debit of the firm, we need to credit the partner. So I'll credit Rhea with 1,65,000. I'll credit Mona with 55,000 into 2, which is 1,10,000. And I'll credit Nisha with 55,000. And since I've credited the partner, I will write here distributing profits. And the ratio in which we distributed was the correct ratio of 3:2:1. Next step is to find the total of each of these columns. Rhea debit total 1,10,000. Rhea credit total 1,65,000. Mona debit total 1,10,000. Mona credit total 1,10,000. Nisha debit total 1,10,000. Nisha credit total 55,000. Firm debit total 3,30,000, and firm credit total is also 3,30,000. Net effect 55,000 credit for Rhea, nothing for Mona, and 55,000 debit for Nisha. There is nothing mentioned, so we'll assume the fluctuating capital method and pass the adjustment journal entry through the partner's capital accounts. So solution, journal, date, particulars, LF, debit rupees, credit rupees. Nisha's capital account debit, $55,000 to Reyes capital account. 55,000. And the narration being adjustment entry passed to rectify error. So we understand from this problem that whenever profits have been distributed in the wrong ratio, our approach to the problem should be to reverse the profits which has been distributed in the wrong ratio, and by reversing the profits I mean debiting the partner's capital and crediting the firm. So the very first step should be to reverse the profits in the wrong ratio. Next example, example 9. A, B and C are partners in a firm. The partnership deed does not provide for interest on capital, but still it was credited to the partners' capital accounts at 5% per annum for the 2 years ending 31st March 2018 and 31st March 2019. Their fixed capitals on which interest was calculated throughout were A rupees 50,000, B rupees 40,000 and C rupees 30,000. During the 2 years, they shared profits as follows. 2017-18, the profit sharing ratio was 5:3:2, and 2018-19, the profit sharing ratio was 2:2:1. You are required to pass an adjustment entry as at 1st April 2019. So we understand from this problem that interest on capital was provided although it was not supposed to be provided as per the partnership deed. So our approach to the problem will be to reverse the interest on capital for the 2 years. The fixed capital method is being maintained, and the fixed capitals of A, B and C are given. So to get the amount of interest on capital, we can apply 5% on these capitals of A, B and C. We'll begin by reversing the interest on capital for the first year, 2017-2018. Working note. Table showing adjustment to be made. Particulars. A divided into debit and credit. B again divided into debit and credit. C divided into debit and credit, and the final column for the firm divided into debit and credit. So reverse IOC. And the year for which we are reversing is the first year, 2017-18. For reversing IOC, we need to debit the partner and credit the firm. The rate of IOC is 5% per annum. A's IOC is 2,500. B's IOC 5% on 40,000, which is rupees 2,000. And C's IOC 5% on 30,000, which is 1,500. The total of this is rupees 6,000, which I will put in the credit column of the firm. Now in this problem, The profit sharing ratio for 2017-18 is 5:3:2, whereas for 2018-19 is 2:2:1. So this 6,000 we will provide and distribute in 5:3:2 because this is a profit sharing ratio for 2017-18. So this 6,000 I'll put in the debit of the firm and divide it in 5:3:2. On dividing 6,000 in 5:3:2, I get 3,000 for A, 1,800 for B, and 1,200 for C. And here I will write distributing profits, and for this year the profits are in the ratio of 5:3:2. Now again I will reverse the IOC for 2018-19. 2,500, 2,000 debit of B and 1,500 debit of C. So I get 6,000 to the credit of the firm. I will write 6,000 on the debit, and this time I will divide in the ratio of 2:2:1. On dividing 6,000 into 2 by 5, I get 2,400. So I will credit the partners 2,400 for A, 2,400 for B, and 1,200 for C. And I will write here distributing profits, the ratio being 2:2:1. Now we need to total up the columns. 5,000 total of debit of A, 5,400 total of credit of A, 4,000 total of debit of B, 4,200 total of credit of B, 3,000 total of debit of C, and 2,400 total of credit of C. 12,000 is the total of debit of the firm, and 12,000 is again the total of credit of the firm. Let's go ahead and find out the net effect. 400 credit for A, 200 credit for B, and 600 debit for C. Now we have to recollect that the capitals were fixed, so the rectification adjustment entry needs to be passed through the partner's current account. So let's go ahead with the solution. Journal, date, particulars, LF, debit rupees and credit rupees. The date is 1st April 2019. We need to debit C's current account. With 600 rupees, and we need to credit A's current account with 400 rupees, and we need to credit B's current account with 200 rupees. And the narration: being adjustment entry passed to rectify the error. So this problem was slightly different because the profit sharing ratio over the 2 years were changing. The first year it was 5:3:2, and the second year it was 2:2:1. So since IOC was not supposed to be allowed, we reversed the IOC by debiting the partner and crediting the firm. But the total IOC for 2017-18 we distributed in 5:3:2, whereas the total IOC for the next year 2018-19 we distributed in the ratio of 2:2:1.